Welcome everyone to those who are joining this finance session. We're just getting everything set up for the live stream to YouTube. So if you are joining on Zoom and you're not able to stay for the whole session, or you would like to log in later and rewatch this session, we will have everything saved on YouTube. So I think we are live. Are we good, Alyssa? Awesome.
Yeah, we're all good.
Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you might be joining us from. And welcome, future Mavericks. Just getting a phone call. And welcome, future Mavericks. We're so excited to welcome you to our Maverick family. And if you are not sure yet what a Maverick is, it is the Minnesota State University mascot. And you will see Stomper the Maverick all over the place when you come to campus. And so as an accepted student to MSU Mankato, you are officially part of the Maverick community. And we're so excited to welcome you here. My name is Elizabeth Lorenz, and I work as the Assistant Director of International Recruitment and Enrollment at Minnesota State University Mankato. And I'm joined by my lovely colleagues today, Alyssa and Mej. I will let you both introduce yourselves.
Awesome. Do you want to go first, Majd?
Sure. My name is Majd. I'm an international student from Saudi Arabia. I work at the Carney International Center as a Maverick Global Ambassador.
And I am Alyssa Morrison. I am the Director of International Recruitment and Communications. And this is an exciting segment. I'm so excited to talk about finances.
Yes, you all have joined for the most exciting one, I think. This is probably what we get the most questions about from students and their families. So we are going to jump right in. We have a more formal PowerPoint presentation we will share with you. And then at the end of our session, we'll have time for question and answer. So during the presentation, if you think of any questions or you want something clarified, please type that into the question and answer box on Zoom. Or if you are joining on YouTube, you can also type it in the comments section of YouTube, and we will be answering those questions live. So jumping right in for the overview today, we are going to talk quickly through planning your budget. So what's included in the estimated cost of attendance, the overview of finances and payment options at Minnesota State Mankato, how to open a bank account when you come to Mankato. We'll briefly touch on different scholarships and funding opportunities for international students, and then some logistics that impact your budget when you're coming to Mankato. So traveling to the university, housing and transportation options, and then of course, working on campus and employment opportunities. And finally, some overview about orientation and getting involved. We already introduced ourselves, so I'm gonna jump ahead to planning your budget. And then we'll start rotating through the slides between the three of us. So planning your budget, all of you should have received at this point an I-20 for the spring 2024 semester. And on your I-20, or when you requested your I-20, you were required to show proof of funding to study at Minnesota State Mankato. So you probably showed a bank statement or maybe a business account, but some type of funding from your sponsor of how you will pay for your education in the United States. And that budget included certain aspects of estimated expenses when it comes to studying at the university in the United States. And so when you're thinking about your finances and planning your budget, you need to plan very carefully with your financial sponsor of how you will be paying for everything when you get to the university. So what was included in that budget when you requested your I-20? It included the estimated cost of attendance for one academic year at the university, which is 2 semesters or 9 months. It included tuition and fees for your classes, the estimated cost of living based on living on campus in the dormitories. It included health insurance for 12 months of health insurance coverage in the US. It included books and supplies for your classes, as well as other personal expenses. So overall, it's a fairly comprehensive budget, but it doesn't include everything. So some of the other expenses you need to factor in for coming to Mankato includes the SEVIS fee and immigration fees that you will be paying. So that SEVIS I-901 fee is what you may have paid already or will be paying if you are scheduling your visa interview. It's a $350 fee to activate your I-20 record, which is also called your SEVIS record. In addition to that, you will have to pay a $185 visa fee to schedule your visa interview. So hopefully you've already made some of those payments, but just keep those in mind if you have not done so yet. And then other expenses to think through are travel expenses, such as airfare, the shuttle getting from the airport in Minneapolis to Mankato, which we'll talk a little bit more in detail later. Possibly hotel costs if you don't have a place to live right away or you're not able to move into your apartment or dormitory yet. And other travel expenses that might come up, like baggage fees for excess luggage, food as you're traveling. So just keep those expenses in mind as you're planning your budget and your travel to Mankato. So with that, I'll hand it over to Alyssa just to talk through that breakdown of expenses.
Awesome. Yes. So, we give you a budget for a reason, and it's because it's a pretty accurate representation of what we think you'll be spending here. So, with students, some of them spend more, some of them spend less, but this is what you should kind of be expecting to pay for your first year here. So if we're looking at undergraduate expenses, you can probably see on this list that the largest expense that you have is actually your tuition and fees. So as a state-funded institution, anyone who lives outside of Minnesota is actually going to have to pay a higher rate than individuals living inside of Minnesota. That's because our taxes pay partially for the tuition. And for individuals who are not paying taxes in Minnesota, you're supplementing the tuition through that higher rate. So typically we charge our non-resident students $18,812 for the full year. So that's fall semester and spring semester, not just one. But we really do like having you here. We don't just say it, we're going to put our money behind it, and we give each one of you that International Maverick Scholarship. So this year, that scholarship helps you out by giving you $7,700 over the 2 semesters. So divide that number in half, that scholarship number in half, and that's going to go to fall, and then the other half will go to spring. And together with that scholarship, you'll end up paying about $11,112 for tuition. This is going to be billed to you in 2 segments. So you get a bill for fall, you pay your fall bill, and then you register for spring, and then you'll pay your spring bill. So I think we're going to get into that a little bit more in detail later on. But just to get you started thinking about that, this tuition rate will be split into 2. You'll want to pay part of that, and for you all it's spring, and then next year you'll pay the second part. All right, so then if we're moving down, we look at living expenses, and we tell you to budget about $10,000. Actually, not about. We're telling you specifically $10,198. Now, are you going to spend that exactly? Maybe if you choose the exact plan, housing plan, and meal plan that we have used to calculate this rate. So this rate for the 9 months is what a student who lives on campus could pay. because even on campus, there are multiple rates depending on what type of room you are living in. So if you want the fanciest room, it has all the bells and whistles, your own bathroom, it's going to be more than $10,000 a year. It's going to be closer to probably 12 or 13. But with that, if you are in a more affordable room, it will be closer to 10,000. This number is also including your food. So it's not just a place to live, but it's also your budget to make sure that you are eating 3 square meals a day and you are eating somewhat healthy food. So for those of you living on campus, this is a really easy thing because you know what your room rate is, you select your meal plan, and it gets put directly onto e-services. And so you do know pretty closely your exact budget. If you're living off campus, this is still a pretty good figure to keep in mind. It's going to be billed to you differently because it will go through your housing complex. And it also would include things like your grocery shopping, your electricity, your air conditioning in the summer, your heating in the winter, internet. So it is pretty close to that. And we do tell students to budget about that, whether you're on or off campus. And even if you know someone in the Mankato area and you plan on living with them, we understand that you may not be paying for your rent, but per federal regulations, we do still need to see this amount of money in case something were to happen and you do need to move out and be on your own. So then moving forward, books and supplies, we say to budget about $1,400. This could be lab fees. This could be books. This could be sketch pads if you're in an art class. It could be buying a laptop your first year because you need to do that. So the books and supplies number is definitely an estimate. You probably will not spend that, but you could spend that and more. I will say our university has done a very good job at finding online free resources for you to use in many of your classes. But if you're in the sciences, please expect to have some hefty textbook fees each semester because you do have to have the physical book normally. Health insurance is next, and we require every student to have health insurance. So many of you probably have heard about the health system in the United States, and it's incredibly important that you have health insurance in case you get sick or something happens. This is a mandatory fee, and it will need to be paid immediately when you get to campus. You cannot register for classes without paying for this. For one full year, fall and spring, we say to budget $2,300. And that is very close. I think this August, our students paid $2,289 for 12 months of coverage. You all are coming in January, and so you're not getting the full year of health insurance. You're getting a reduced amount, 8 months of coverage. And so your bill will be slightly lower than that. And I think we have the specific fee actually in a slide later on. But this you can expect to pay. This is an estimate, but it is very close to what you will need to pay. And then finally, your personal expenses. That's going to be if you go out to eat, go to the movies, if you really like to shop, all of those things. So that's your budget. You may love shopping and doing all of that, and it could be higher. You could also be very frugal and, make sure that you're not spending too much, and so it might be lower. But just a quick recap again, your tuition and fees and your health insurance, those are very accurate estimates, and you will be paying very close to those amounts. The other three on here, living expenses, books and supplies, and personal expenses, are estimates, and they do have a wide range between them. So we just say, be sure that you're reading and making accurate budgets for what you want and not what you think it's going to cost, but actual expenses.
All right, we'll jump over to how to make payments. And on this slide, Majd, if you have any personal tips or experiences you want to share from your student perspective, feel free to jump in. So I'll just talk through a couple of the payment options that students have for paying their bill once they get to the university. So how to make payments. First of all, it's important to know that students are billed per semester that they're enrolled at the university. So that overall budget that we just showed, that's for 2 semesters. Everything on there would be divided in 2 when it comes to university expenses. So your tuition, you are only billed for the semester you are currently enrolled in. You're not paying for future terms. So when you come for spring, you'll only see your spring tuition bill. If you're living on campus, you'll only see the bill for on-campus housing costs for the spring. So the ways to pay your bill through the university, there's a couple different options that all students have, but specifically for international. The first is Flywire. This is a platform that is very similar to the concept of a wire transfer, where students can transfer funds from a bank account in their home country directly to the university. Unfortunately, at this time, the university does not accept direct wire transfer payments. So Flywire is the only option for students who are wanting to do a bank transfer in that way. Flywire it's a software platform that's directly connected to Minnesota State University Mankato. So if you want to make payments through that way, we have step-by-step instructions that you can follow and share with your family or whoever your financial sponsor might be to help guide them through making those payments. But essentially, you'll create an account. You will link it to your bank account in your home country. And then you will select how much money you want to transfer from that account to Minnesota State Mankato. And you can choose which currency type you would like to make your payments in. And it also should give you the best exchange rate depending on that currency conversion rate. It is available in most countries. We have had cases of a couple different countries where students have had issues connecting their bank. So if that is the case, let us know and we'll work with our student finance office to try and troubleshoot any payment issues you might be having with Flywire. The other payment option is paying online through your student account. Your student account is called e-services, and you can give access to someone else to make payments on your behalf, or you can make payments directly using a credit card. And so that one will accept most major credit cards, such as Visas, MasterCards, Discover cards, and a few different international bank cards as well. So that's probably the easiest and most convenient way for students to make payments. So that's an option many students do choose. You can also make payments in person when you arrive on campus, either with a credit card or with cash. But keep in mind, we'll mention this a couple times, we do not recommend traveling with large amounts of cash. Because if cash is lost or stolen while you are traveling, it can't be replaced versus traveling with credit cards or bank cards. You can always replace those and you don't lose access to that money. So we would recommend traveling with some amount of cash in hand, but probably no more than $1,000 or equivalent. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later. The next option for payment plans or payments is the automatic monthly payment plan. It kind of has a funny name, but this is the official payment plan. It's called Nelnet/Fax payment plan. And this is a payment plan offered to Minnesota State universities across the Minnesota State system. There is a $34 enrollment fee each semester that you sign up for this payment plan. And if you sign up for that payment plan, you will link it to a bank account, whether that's a bank account outside of the US or a US bank account after you've had a chance to open one. And then each month that you are enrolled in that payment plan, on the 5th of each month, it will withdraw a set amount of funds towards your university bill. So those are the different options for payment plans. You can also do a combination of different options. So maybe you want to send money partially by Flywire, pay partially by credit card when you arrive on campus. And then maybe the next semester you want to enroll in a payment plan. You can kind of pick and choose your payment types. For the spring 2024 semester, please keep in mind that any university bill that you have is due in full by February 12th. So all tuition needs to be paid by February 12th, and all on-campus housing expenses need to be paid by that day. Majd, I'm wondering if you have any examples or experiences from making payments as a student that you would recommend for other students.
Can you hear me? My laptop's being slow.
Yes.
Okay. I think my personal favorite is the online one through eService. My dad is my sponsor, and all I have to do on eService is literally just add his email. There's a limited time where he would have access to that bill, but you can renew it by simply re-adding the email. And then he can just pay for it from back home, in whatever ways that he wants. And then I would receive a receipt that says your bill has been paid. So I think for me, that one was the most efficient one to use, and it's the one that I've been using since I got here.
Awesome. Thanks.
Could we maybe talk a little bit about why parents are not able to go into e-services? So Mej just said that she actually can't give her dad her password. She needs to put his email in and send him the bill. In the United States, we cannot share any of your information with anyone other than you. So even though, Mej, her dad is paying her bill, if he called me right now and said, how much money does Mej owe? I would have to say, I'm really sorry. I can't disclose any information. I can't even tell him if she is a student at our institution or not. So it's really important for you to talk with your parents about what is going to work. Do they have consistent access to email so that they can check the email message and use the link to go in and make the payment? Do they have a credit card that is going to work for US payments? So those are things to consider, because if your parents do have trouble and you don't know how to help them through it, it could be difficult for them to get information on that. I know, Elizabeth, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I think you explained that really well. So it's part of the US privacy and data protection. All universities are like this, and many businesses, healthcare centers, anything that has private data, there's strict laws around sharing that data. And so if you or your parents or family have questions about that information, let us know, and we would be happy to walk you through the steps you need to take to give them access, if you want them to have access to certain aspects of your university education. Thanks for mentioning that, Alyssa. That's a
Yeah.
right.
And honestly, I just dealt with that this week. Someone's uncle called me and said, I want to make a payment to the student's account, but I don't have the student's tech ID, and but I want to make the payment. And unfortunately, I had to explain to him that even though he was ready and willing to make the payment, and I'm sure the student wanted him to make the payment, I couldn't give him any information on the tech ID or how to say anything to the cashier to make that payment. So it's really important that you communicate and give them access through that email method if that's what you would want to happen. All right, so yes, we do highly recommend that you open a bank account here in Mankato. It is, sorry, now I'm getting phone calls. Opening a bank account here is going to make your life a lot easier. Then your parents can wire you money to your bank account. If you have a paycheck from Minnesota State University, you can have it directly deposited in your bank account, and you don't have to worry about cashing checks and all of that. So it's pretty easy to open a bank account here in the United States. And there are just a couple of steps to keep in mind. So the first one is you have to choose what US bank you would like to open an account with. We don't have any preference. We're not going to tell you what bank you should bank at because it truly doesn't matter to us in any way. We do have some recommended banks just based on feedback from students on the ease of using the services, of going to a location and getting cash, and having access to an ATM on campus. So our students really do seem to prefer Wells Fargo, which is a very large national bank. And if you have an account at the Wells Fargo in Mankato, you can access that account if you're on vacation in California, New York, Florida, wherever you're going. So that one is quite popular. US Bank is another popular one, and same thing. That bank is going to be available to you across the country. It doesn't matter if you're in Alaska or North Dakota. It's going to cover you, and you'll probably be able to find a ATM. We do have a bank on campus, so that is the Affinity Federal Credit Union. Now, again, you'll probably notice this is a credit union and not a bank. And there is a slight difference. I'm not going to get into those differences too much because I'm not a finance person. But with a credit union, you have sometimes a little bit more say in how your money is used, because you're considered an owner at the credit union. Okay, don't quote me on any of this. I'm not a banker, but that's my understanding. But anyway, the credit union you do have access to on campus. They're going to have many, if not all of the same services as a bank. Again, it's just a little bit different on how they can use your money. And then there are a ton of other options. Like I personally have a bank account at this tiny little bank from my hometown. There are literally 4 of them in the entire country. And so for me, I highly recommend using a larger bank like this, because when I need to access my funds, if I'm on vacation, actually in Georgia, it does become a little bit difficult. Majd, I wonder if you could share any opinions or thoughts that you've got or heard students share about choosing a bank.
Sure. I mean, like you said, the good thing about Affinity Plus is you can open your bank account on campus. I personally use US Bank. I know that the 3 options listed here are the ones that recognize international students and will help you by using your passport and your I-20. What I like about US Bank is the online mobile app. It's really easy to use, and it's connected to Zelle, which is an option for you to like share money with your friends. Like say you're hanging out with your friends and you want to give them money for, for whatever you like, restaurant or tickets or whatever. It's an easy way to share that money. And I've just had really good experience when I travel internationally, where it would still work internationally, especially if I'm getting paid on campus. So it's just the option that I picked to go through with US Bank just because of like the mobile app and using Zelle.
Yeah, that's what I hear a lot is the mobile apps are really good for Wells Fargo and US Bank. Um, so again, I have that tiny little bank and I have a mobile app, but it is not great. And I'm telling you how easy it is to open a bank account. So maybe I should just go open a bank account at one of these big ones. But anyway, so you'll choose a bank. You don't have to choose it before you arrive. You can get here as well and kind of talk to people. You'll probably hear these options over and over, but there are other options as well that you could explore. Once you've chosen a bank, though, you will need to go to the bank in person to open a personal checking account. Like in most countries, there are two different kinds of accounts that you can open pretty easily. One is a checking account and one is a savings account. Your savings account is something where you're going to put money in, but you're probably not going to access it very often because you're saving it. As a college student, whether you can save or not, that's kind of a whole different thing, a whole different conversation. But I'm telling you this because you want to make sure that you are opening a checking account because that is where you will get your bank card to make transactions and pay for things. You will not get a bank card for a savings account. You can open both though. Sometimes it's free, sometimes you have to pay. So just be careful and read the fine print. When you're opening a bank account, you'll bring your passport with you, your Visa. So not your Visa card, but the Visa in your passport, which is not going anywhere if you have your passport. Bring your I-20. And then once you are on campus, you'll get a student ID. You'll need to bring that with. And you also need to be able to show a local address. So if you don't yet have an apartment or a place that you're living, you could have some different options. You could use a friend's address. You could wait. So if that is the case, we can talk through that when you get here. And then, of course, you'll bring money with you to deposit into the bank. So whether that be cash or you're using a wire transfer, a bank card, that's up to you. But you do need to bring that with in order to get it into the account. And then finally, after you get your account set up, you'll have access to mobile banking and debit card options. Each bank does that a little bit differently, and they'll usually talk you through that when you open the account. I think most of us are familiar with that now, but in case you're not, they're always more than happy to walk you through and show you all the options. Great. On to the next.
So, once you have arrived, or actually just in terms of finances, hopefully before you have arrived, you should be exploring your housing options, because this definitely impacts your overall budget and expenses when it comes to being a student in the US. And you have a couple different housing options at Minnesota State University, Mankato. As we mentioned, we do not require students to live on campus in the dormitories. So you have freedom to choose wherever you would like to live. And so this is just kind of a breakdown of the different options of renting an apartment off campus versus living on campus in the dormitories. And generally what that average monthly cost is going to be when you break the two down. So for off-campus renting, when you include everything from the rent that you're paying each month, the utilities such as electricity, gas, Wi-Fi, possibly water, just depending on the apartment and what's included in your rent or not. And then when you factor in monthly food expenses from groceries, as well as renter's insurance, the average cost for housing per month in Mankato is $1,100, and that's including all of those expenses. Now, that could be significantly cheaper for some students, or it could cost a lot more for other students. It really all comes down to the type of apartment you are renting, such as how new it is. If it's a newer apartment, it might have better amenities like a gym, fitness center, a swimming pool, a game room, or it might be an older apartment with very basic amenities where it's just your apartment, but it doesn't include all the extra add-ons. So the type of apartment that you are renting from will definitely impact the cost. And then how many roommates you are sharing your apartment with. So if you live alone, rent is typically much more expensive for a 1-bedroom or studio apartment than it is for an apartment with 4 or 5 bedrooms that you're sharing with possibly 4 or 5 other roommates. And you're splitting that cost of rent and maybe cooking together and splitting the utility bills. So that $1,100 is just a baseline to give you an idea of what the average cost of living will be. But all of that is variable depending on the type of apartment and how many people you are sharing that apartment with. When it comes to renting in Mankato, most apartment complexes will require a 12-month lease. So for students who are starting at the university in January 2024, your lease will likely go through December of 2024. Now that can vary for some apartments. Some of the student apartments that are very close to the university, they tend to follow the university schedule because they realize most people living there are students and they're not necessarily staying the entire year, especially through the summer. So depending on the apartment complex, your lease might only go through July or August of 2024. So when you're signing the lease, make sure that you're reading through all of the terms, all the conditions, and the length of your lease. Once that lease is signed and you have agreed to those terms, you are obligated to live there and pay rent at that apartment. So make sure you are not going to different apartment complexes and signing multiple leases to secure a spot. Only sign a lease when you are certain this is the place you want to live and you understand all of the conditions of paying rent and living there. In addition to signing the lease, you will also need to submit money that is called a security deposit. This is to reserve your room at that apartment. And so that security deposit, it's going to cost different or be a different price depending on the apartment that you are signing your lease with. In some cases, it might be first, you pay the total amount of first month's rent and last month's rent as part of that security deposit. That just ensures the apartment complex that you are going to be a renter there, and it usually guarantees that you have that money to make payments for your rent. All of that will be clearly stated in the terms of the lease. And so if you have questions about that, reach out to the leasing agent or manager that you're working with just to clarify what's expected, because you do not want to get into a position where you're paying rent at an apartment that you can't afford or maybe don't understand all of the conditions. There are quite a few student-friendly apartments that are located within 1 to 3 kilometers from campus. And there are several affordable options that are very close to campus as well. We have a link to Offcampus Housing, the Off-Campus Housing portal, where you can do some research on different apartment complexes located in Mankato. And there's a way you can filter through based on rent prices, based on availability. So the university has made an awesome platform that helps with students finding off-campus housing. So we'll share that with you in the chat later on. But just know there's quite a few apartments that are within walking distance from the university. They're also on the city bus route. And so you can easily take a bus from your apartment complex to the university. Also, students oftentimes will bike to, they might purchase a bike during their time here and bicycle to campus. So there's different options for you. I mentioned when it comes to off-campus renting, you need to pay utilities as well. So do ask about what's included in your rent. In some cases, your rent might cover all of your utilities, such as electricity, gas, water, and even Wi-Fi or internet. In other cases, you might have to pay for these individually. So make sure you're asking what is included in those terms. If you are living off campus, you, of course, are going to be responsible for cooking and cleaning your own apartment. The apartment complexes do not include any cleaning services, so you will be responsible for maintaining that property so that it's in very good condition when it comes time for you to move out. If there's any damages to your apartment when you are moving out, the apartment complex will charge you for those. So it's really important that you take care of the property. And then also when it comes to cooking for yourself, you will have to think about your monthly budget when it comes to food and buying groceries at different stores around the Mankato. Again, you have that option to live alone or with roommates, depending on your budget and your preferences. And then finally, if you really don't love cooking and you want a meal plan option, there are meal plans through the university that are specific for off-campus students. So if you want to look into those and just have the option to eat a couple meals on campus each week, just know that those are available to you. And it's not mentioned here, but one additional note I want to add is when it comes to an apartment, in most cases, you are responsible for providing the furniture for that apartment. To my knowledge, there's only one apartment complex in Mankato that comes fully furnished with a bed and dresser and tables and chairs and desks. Almost all the other apartments do not include any furniture. So if you are a first-year student and you're coming and wanting to live off campus, factor that into your budget that you will need to make purchases for some of those basic furniture items, such as a bed, maybe a table or a desk. Maybe you want a couch or sofa, and then cooking utensils like pots, pans, plates, cups, glasses, all of those basics. So just keep that in mind with expenses. On-campus housing, this is something that we definitely recommend for students who are in their first year at the university. The reason for this is the point that I just mentioned. If you're living off campus, you have all these additional startup costs with buying furniture and plates and cups and all those basics. If you're living on campus in the dormitories, you do not need to worry about those things. The dormitories come fully furnished with a bed, a dresser, a desk, a chair, a closet, or a wardrobe. And then you also have a meal plan. So you don't have to worry about buying plates and cups and cooking for yourself. So while it can be slightly more expensive to live on campus in the dormitories, the data has shown that students who live on campus for their first term or first year at the university are academically more successful than students who live off campus. It's so much easier to find community, to build friends, and easily get involved and just feel like you're part of the campus environment. So when you break down that average monthly cost of living on campus in the dorms, you're going to have your dormitory fee and your meal plan all included in on-campus housing. So per month, that's around $1,300 for everything. And the benefit for students who are coming in the spring semester is if they want to live on campus, they only have to sign a contract for one semester. So you could come to the university, live on campus for spring 2024 and decide if you like it. And if you want to continue living on there, you can sign a contract for the next year. But on-campus students for spring only need to sign a one-semester contract. So I feel like that's a really good option for students who are just wanting to check it out and see what it's all about living on campus. And then you can also decide that you want to move off campus after living in the dorms for one semester. So just keep in mind, similar to the apartment complex lease, you do have to sign a contract with university housing. And if you sign that contract, you are required to live on campus for that term. So you'll sign that housing contract, and there is a $250 deposit to guarantee your spot. Now, I say all this with the caveat that this year, for fall of 2023, the dormitories were 100% full. So we had a wait list for students. For spring of 2024, they are projecting that there will be some open spots, but obviously we can't guarantee that there's on-campus housing for every single student. So the sooner that you sign up for on-campus housing, the better chance you would have of getting a spot. But we also recommend waiting to sign any housing contracts until you have your visa in hand. So do not sign an apartment lease or the on-campus housing contract until you have your student visa. So just for the sake of time, I'm going to jump ahead to the next slide. But if you have questions about the housing, let us know.
All right. So I mentioned health insurance a little bit earlier, and so we can get a little bit more into it. But health insurance is required for all F1 and J1 international students. So we require you to purchase the plan that our system office has found to be the most comprehensive and budget friendly for you. We understand that the cost is still very high. But if you look at other institutions across the United States, we actually have one of the more affordable insurance rates. So we have chosen to go with United Healthcare as the Minnesota State insurance provider. So whether you go to St. Cloud State, Southwest Minnesota State, or Minnesota State University Moorhead, or any of the other universities, you are all required to purchase the same healthcare plan so that we can get the best possible deal for you. The insurance is comprehensive, so there is a deductible, which means regardless of what happens, there's usually a level of money that you have to pay each year. But once you hit that amount or spend that amount of money, insurance takes care of it. So this would come in handy if you get a serious illness, if you have an accident, or you break your leg. All of those things will be like, you're going to be very thankful for this health insurance. $2,300 sounds like a lot, but a broken leg in and of itself can cost you over $30,000 in medical bills. Mej is shaking her head because she has experience, and I wonder if you're comfortable sharing any of your experiences.
Yeah. Actually, both my brother and I broke a bone. And honestly, I could not be more grateful for the health insurance. And other than both of these accidents, I mean, it does cover 80% of your costs. So when that bill went down, it really did help a lot. It's really worth paying. And other than like these two accidents, when you're feeling sick, if you need physical therapy, because I did need physical therapy afterwards, and I needed physical therapy for other reasons, the health insurance just covered all of that, including ambulance rides, which typically in the US, the ambulance ride is the most expensive thing in the health care system. But this health insurance covers that as well.
Yeah, an ambulance ride, even if you're 4 blocks from the hospital, can cost you over $1,000 without insurance. So I won't comment too much more on our health system. There are things that need to be fixed that are out of our control. But another thing I want to mention about the health insurance is if something were to happen, like you get very ill or you have to be in the hospital for a really serious injury, the health insurance actually will pay for a parent of yours to come to Minnesota and be with you. So, you know, when you're talking to your parents and they're like, I don't know, you can remind them that this is there and the benefit that you would receive if something were to happen. But we're going to go with the assumption that nothing happens, hopefully. Yeah. And the last thing here, like I said earlier, is you do have to pay that before you register. So, all right, handed it over.
I'll come back to those slides. I just want to show you, because it wasn't on that one, exactly the amount for the spring 2024 semester. We'll talk about this under orientation, but that bullet point where it says pay annual health insurance, the spring 2024 insurance rate is $1,388. And that provides coverage from January through August of 2024. So that is the amount that needs to be paid before you can register for classes. So you can pay that through one of the methods we mentioned earlier, such as Flywire or online through a credit card, or you can pay in person at orientation. Just know it does need to be paid prior to being able to register for your classes. So I know we get a lot of questions about scholarship opportunities for international students. And when it comes to first-year students, we only have a couple options for international student scholarships, but we have many more options for currently enrolled students through the university scholarship database. So I'll cover that in just a second. The two primary scholarships that we have for new students is the International Maverick Scholarship, which Alyssa mentioned earlier under the budget. So every first-year student automatically receives this scholarship for their first term. So when you're coming for January of 2024, you will see $3,350 applied towards your spring semester bill. So remember that $7,700 is divided between 2 semesters. So you'll see that applied to your tuition for spring. And then you can maintain that scholarship each academic year by meeting a 2.5 term or semester grade point average or 3.0 cumulative GPA. This slide didn't get updated yet, but we do require students to participate in volunteer activities as part of that scholarship. That requirement just changed this academic year. We're requiring students to participate in 30 hours of volunteer service each academic year. So for students coming in spring, you would need to complete 30 volunteer service hours. And we have a platform through the university where you can find different volunteer opportunities, sign up for those, and keep track of your hours. So we'll cover all of that information at orientation in January. And then, of course, you need to maintain your student visa in order to keep that scholarship. As long as you meet these requirements, you will be guaranteed that scholarship each year until you finish your program. The other scholarship that some of you might be receiving is called the Refer a Friend Scholarship. So if you had a student at Minnesota State Mankato refer you before you applied to the university, when you enroll, both you and that student who referred you will each receive a one-time $500 scholarship towards your tuition. And then when you come to campus, if you refer friends or family members before they apply to the university and they enroll, both you and that student will also receive a $500 scholarship. So this is also a future scholarship opportunity that you can be thinking about. You can refer up to 5 students to the university. So that's up to $2,500 that you could get towards tuition just for referring friends and family to apply and enroll. And then I mentioned we have more scholarships available for currently enrolled students. The university has a scholarship database called Scholarship Finder. And on this database, you can create a profile and it will filter different scholarships that you might be eligible to apply for. So every year during the month of February at the university, current students can apply for these scholarship opportunities. So when you come in January, that following month in February, that is going to be scholarship month. So you can fill out as many applications for scholarships that you meet the requirements for. And there's a chance that you might be eligible for some scholarships for the next year. And any additional scholarship that you receive can be combined with the International Maverick Scholarship. So keep that in mind when it comes to scholarship opportunities. Mej, have you had experience applying for any of those?
Yeah, especially college-based, meaning like I'm a criminal justice major and there are scholarships related to my major, which is things that you'll notice when you go on Scholarship Finder, like based on what you're studying, based on like even just being an international student, there are scholarships that you can relate to. And so I've gotten a couple ones that are either related to like humanitarian sciences or just criminal justice and corrections related. Or even like if you volunteer on campus in a specific department, just doing that, there are scholarships related to that too.
Awesome. Just really quick, there are some additional external scholarship resources that we recommend searching for. These are organizations that are separate from Minnesota State University, so not affiliated with us. So I recommend just taking a photo or screenshot of this and Googling them later. Those include the Institute of International Education, Education USA. Both of those are U.S. Department of State funded organizations, and they have scholarship opportunities, or at least promote scholarship opportunities for international students who are studying in the United States. And then the others listed here are NAFSA. They have a great resource for financial aid. That's a professional organization for international education in the United States. College Board, internationalstudent.com, studyusa.com, and then, of course, I mentioned the scholarship database through the university. All right. And next is travel.
All right. So yesterday we had a very comprehensive session on travel to Mankato and housing. So we talked a lot about budgeting today, but if you have more questions on actually finding housing or how to get here, that webinar that is also on YouTube is going to give you a lot more information. But you are going to fly into MSP, which is the Minneapolis-St. Paul International Airport. You do not need to necessarily fly in directly there from your home country. You could maybe stop in New York, visit there for a couple days, and then come to Mankato. So that is okay. But MSP is going to be your best option. It is about 120 kilometers from Mankato. So it takes only about an hour and 15 minutes to 2 hours, depending on traffic, to get here. Sometimes students ask me, can I travel in from Chicago? You absolutely can. Be forewarned that Chicago is an 8-hour car ride from Mankato. And so it's not like a great way to start your journey here. So we do recommend flying into MSP. We do not provide a shuttle service. There is a great private shuttle service to Mankato, though, that we highly recommend. The earlier you purchase your shuttle ticket, the cheaper it is, and they can range anywhere from $15 to $30 one way. So it's really affordable. Um, don't take an Uber, don't take a taxi. That I think I took an Uber once because I came in really late at night and it was about $150. Um, so $30 land to air, you get a comfy bus, Wi-Fi, you don't have to worry about it, and it brings you right to MSU. Or an Uber, taxi, Lyft, that's going to be anywhere from $100 to $200, depending on the day. If you come in really late, like if you are getting into MSP at 10 p.m. or 1 a.m., we highly recommend reserving a hotel in the area of the airport and then making your way to Mankato the next day. You will be much happier that way. And you can usually find a hotel for $75 to $100. Won't be the fanciest 5-star, but it'll be clean and a safe place to stay.
All right. And just a final reminder too, do not travel. If you are bringing cash, do not travel with more than 10,000 US dollars in cash. This has customs implications. So if you have that amount of money, you will be stopped at US Customs when you enter the United States and have to declare and pay tax on that money if it's more than 10,000 US dollars. So again, don't travel with large amounts of cash, but if you are bringing cash, that is the cutoff limit. So just want to mention that too. And then finally, for our reminders about international orientation, orientation is January 3rd through 5th. So coming up here in just a couple months, make sure that you coordinate your travel plans to arrive no later than January 2nd so that you can be here by January 3rd to check in for orientation. When you do come, make sure that you bring your passport and visa and I-20. You'll get some reminder emails about the remaining items listed here, such as placement testing. You'll get updates about if you are required to do any math or English placement testing before you register for your classes. We'll be sending you reminders about paying your health insurance at the university before you register for classes. So keep that in mind. And then what you can be working on right now, if you have not done this already, is immunizations. When you come to the university, you will need to show some documentation of immunizations, and those include tetanus and diphtheria and MMR, measles, mumps, and rubella. So if you have those immunizations or vaccinations already, bring documentation with you to the university. If you do not have those yet, I would recommend getting them done in your home country if it's affordable to do so. And if you're not able to do that, you can get them when you arrive on campus through Student Health Services, and that will be covered under your health insurance when you get to the US. So a couple different options there. So with that, we're going to wrap up our presentation today on finances. I know students had questions throughout the chat or throughout the session in the chat, and Alyssa and I have been responding, and maybe Mej too, we've been responding to some of those questions. So if there's any final questions that you are waiting to ask or did not get answered, now is the time to type any of those final questions and we'll be happy to answer those. It looks like one question just came in. Can I pay? Oh, Alyssa, you got it. Just saw that.
Yeah, so I was like talking, but I was muted. So, 3 years of using Zoom and still. But anyway, can I pay tuition in monthly installments? So yes, and if you go back to, I think around minute 10, you'll see a very in-depth discussion on those payment plans. But essentially, what you need to know is the payment plans are going to cost different and have different number of installments based on when you sign up for that plan. So if you sign up, if you have your visa right now and you know you are coming, you could sign up for a payment plan starting now. And then you can break up your payments into, I think it's 4 segments: November, December, January, and February. If you sign up for a monthly payment plan in January, you only have 2 months that you will be able to do that. So, thank you, Beth. This is great. So the thing is, you don't want to sign up for a plan if you don't have a visa yet, because you don't want to agree to make payments that you don't know if you're even able to yet. But if you have your visa, you know you're coming, it's probably a good idea to go ahead and enroll in that now so that you can break it up little by little. Yeah, and so Elizabeth pulled up this great thing. So if you enroll by December 1st, it looks like you're able to break it up into 5 payments. If it's December 26th, then you're down to 4. January 25th, you can break it up into 3. So that's good. I kind of made it even more stressful, but it is 3. But if you wait until February, it's going to be 2 and just broken into 2.
And I think, I know it says February, it's broken into 2 payments. I think the interpretation of this is you need to be enrolled in a payment plan by February 12th. And then I think it gives you that extra month to make the payment. So if you're not enrolled in a payment plan by February 12th, then the full university bill is due on the 12th. That's my interpretation or understanding. I think. But we can clarify that or you can clarify that with Student Financial Services when you sign up for this.
I think you're right, Elizabeth. I think you have to be enrolled by February 12th to get that 2 payments. So if you're trying to enroll on February 13th, they're going to tell you that you just have to make the payment in full. So.
Oh yeah, here it says, yeah, months of payment then would be March and April on the 5th of each month.
All right. I think we've got time for one more. So if I pay on February 12th, should I have to pay the full first semester payment? So if you enroll by February 12th, you are going to have to, in order to set the plan up, you're going to have to make 30% of your tuition. You're going to have to pay 30% of your tuition in order to enroll in the program. And then you'll make a payment of approximately 30% of that full tuition in March, or half of the remaining, and then the other half of the remaining in April. So it's helping you split it into 3, but that first payment is 30% of your tuition, and you will need to make that payment in order to even enroll.
Yep, that looks right. I just put the link in the Zoom chat for those of you who are in Zoom. But if not, you can also just find this information on the university website. If you just search payment plan, it will come up. And we also have this linked throughout our pre-arrival emails as well when it comes to finances.
All right. Great. If you do have any questions on payment plans, we've given you what we know. If you need something more specific than that, you can always contact our campus hub and they'll be more than happy to help you, or the cashier's office. So you can go ahead and do that. So someone said, can you please share the link on YouTube? I actually just did. So if you look at the comment right above yours, it's going to be there. With that, I think we're going to have to wrap up, but thank you everyone for coming today. And Elizabeth, do you have any final thoughts?
Just make sure that you are reading the email newsletters that are going out weekly. A lot of the links and information in those newsletters contains information on the university website. And I know it's not always fun to read through this information, but I highly recommend just sitting down, carefully reading through the information, making sure you understand everything, and then ask any follow-up questions once you have that information. I know Alyssa and I and many people in our office, and Mej probably does as well. We get a lot of questions from students with just basic information that's accessible on the website. So read the information first and then ask any questions. It just helps us help you better, knowing that you've done a little bit of the research on your own. But as always, we are happy to help and we'll continue to answer your questions as they come in. So read your emails from us. And we're super excited to meet you all in January.
All right. Thank you. Oh, Mej, any final words?
Nope, just the website. That's a really good advice.
Yes. Read the website and the emails. And hopefully we will see you all in January. We do have some other webinars coming up, so check the schedule and read your email. Have a great day, everyone, or night, depending on where you're at.
Bye, everyone.